Mike Clemens joins us from Pittsburgh. The Packers lost to the Steelers last night, 28-9. So tell us about the game a little bit, Mike.
Well, the MVP of the game for the Packers was Trey Smack from University of Florida, who they picked, was it in the 6th round? Because it was almost like anti-hype during training camp. There was a couple of days where he had some bad days. And I think people are still thinking about the Anders Carlson experience a couple of years ago, and then special teams coordinator had recommended him. He'd coached his older brother. He'd known Anders since he was 14, and he missed kicks. He had a powerful leg, but was not consistent. I don't know if he's still in the league. I know he's been tried out with a couple of different teams. And it's not easy, being going to a team that's not only had back-to-back Hall of Famers at quarterback, but near Hall of Famers in terms of kickers. The long run from Ryan Longwell, followed by Mason Crosby, and now 2 or 3 years where you've gone back and forth. And Brandon McManus got you through the last year and a half or so until he missed 3 kicks in that playoff game in Chicago. So Trey is under a bit of the spotlight, but boy, he looked great last night. I mean, there was one time where early in the game where the first team offense played, Jordan Love was out there for 10 plays, and then he made one from 58 yards, but there was a penalty called, and so they set up and they drove the ball another 20 yards or so, and he hit the next one from about 37 or 38. But then he hit one for real from 58 yards. So he went 3 for 3 last night, and he just seems very confident. He's getting so many questions, and he's been patiently answering them all. But you can kind of get the sense he's a little bit like in disbelief, like, come on, I'm the kicker. It's step line kick. What do you want from me? And I leaned over to him and I said, you understand that, this team, these fans have been spoiled for the last 30 years when it came to kickers, and, they're anxious to see if this is going to be the next guy. I guess there's just that expectations. And I had heard, and I was able to get him to follow up on this last week, that he has been in contact with Ryan Longwell, that Ryan has reached out to him and talked about his experiences at Lambeau and things to look for different kinds of wins at different times of the year, and to approach it like a golfer. If you got a high wind that you're dealing with, the same thing from the golf tee, then you don't just take your normal swing and let it go high and as far as it possibly can. You try and move your feet a little bit and drive it low and out. And so maybe it won't be as long as a drive, but you can still maximize the accuracy and whatever distance you can muster with that kind of adjustment. It was great that Cam Accord, the special teams coordinator, we got our first real meeting with him, and we said, so what does a kicker do? And he says, the kicker does the same thing. He says, it's all in where the ball is held. And so he demonstrated, you go left, you go straight up, you go to the right, it'll tilt back a little bit. It's where the holder puts the ball, and the kicker has to, instruct him which way to do that for which particular kick they need. So 3 for 3, and they look pretty good. Unfortunately, they didn't score any touchdowns, so we didn't get to see a point after touchdown. But we asked LaFleur about what he thought about the game overall last night.
I thought it was great to get back out there and play some football. Certainly a lot of good tape to evaluate. Obviously a lot of things that we need to clean up moving forward, but I was pleased with the effort. We just got to execute a little bit better and find ways to take the ball away and not give up as many explosive plays as we did.
The comments of Matt LaFleur. So I get this picture this morning, and you're hobnobbing with Aaron Rodgers last night. I feel even privileged to have you on the program today, Mike.
Well, you've been covering the guy for 22 years. Frankly, so I took a selfie with him because, it's over. He's made up his mind. He's going to retire after this season. He's gone to extensive discussions about, Green Bay moved on. He sort of had the hint, we're going into Jordan Love's third year that this was probably going to be the same. This is going to go down the same as it was for him following Favre. He now, says, okay, so I thought going to New York was going to be the right thing. The signals that were sent to me, and of course he tears his Achilles on the fourth play of his first year there, and then he has to go through all that rehab. And then he has a great time last year with Mike Tomlin as the head coach of the Steelers. But then, Mike decides it's time to step down. And when they hire Mike McCarthy, that's when Rodgers said, well, I finally started having fun at football again. And with Mike McCarthy getting hired, I mean, there's got to be a sign there. So he's decided to regroup and give it one more try. What was interesting to me was we had a chance to talk to Aaron on a Zoom call. Those of us in the Wisconsin media the day before the Steelers were nice enough to set that up for us. So people were asking him questions, rightfully so, about what are some of his fondest memories about being in Green Bay, and he was rattling off all the names of the equipment people, how much he enjoys them. Even down to Larry, the referee, a guy who'd been a long time, I think, an instructor and also a high school ref. And somewhere along the way, I think it was Mike Sherman, decided to start hiring some of these referees in the area to call penalties during practice every day, just to sort of keep that order and get used to that, to try and minimize penalties when you play the game on Sunday. And so I hadn't seen Larry in the last couple of years, and he came to practice the other day, and he's probably in his 80s now, and he's a little bent over and got a cane. And so Rodgers, during the press conference, he was talking about these different guys, Brian and Red Batty, Brian who just retired, and how much he enjoyed their company. And then he said that he had taken Larry, the referee, gone pheasant hunting with him a couple times. And, Favre did the same thing, Phil, and it doesn't sound like, well, the big hot shot, is just trying to be nice to the little people. No, these people, you do as a player, and especially that guy, you depend on this guy for your equipment and for your needs and helping out in the drills. These guys are sworn to secrecy, and if you're just looking for a good, normal, hardworking Joe who knows what the football life is about, all those guys are the best. And what you think and say and whatever, I mean, it really is like family. And I was very impressed. I had not known, because Larry was a great guy and says hi, but he won't tell you that stuff. Hey, I was out hunting with Aaron the other day. So after the game last night, I'm leaving the visitors' locker room, and Rodgers was just walking by the visitors' locker room on his way out to his car. And I said, hey, come on over here. I said, listen, that guy you mentioned in the presser yesterday, Larry, he was at practice, so he's retired now. But I'll tell you, I know I'll see him around town, the coffee shops, or wherever, and I will play that clip of you giving you and Red and those other guys a shout-out. The other thing is that we were getting into this preseason game, and when you talk about playing in Pittsburgh and a preseason game, all I could think about was the night that Jordy Nelson jumped up for a catch in a meaningless preseason game, as Aaron Rodgers would call it, came down and tore his ACL, was lost for the year. And I think it wrecked that season. That was really when the Packers, when Rodgers and that team under Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy, that's when they missed their chance to get that second ring. The other one was obviously when they lost to the Seahawks in overtime. And so that's what I was asking Rodgers about in the press conference.
There'll be 100 questions about great memories in 5 years for you, but the one I've got today is a little serious because tomorrow night I'm going to be thinking about the summer of 2015 at that field and how big of a loss Jordy Nelson was for that season, and your thoughts in your presser yesterday about, should the league listen to a guy like you, and is there something we can change here where the GMs can still evaluate players, but the games are all worth something? What do you think is there one or two ideas you could leave them with?
First of all, change the prices. I mean, some of the prices for these preseason games without a lot of starters playing seems a little exorbitant, but an old teammate of mine, Brady Papinga, I remember said this years and years ago, but it's basically what I said yesterday. To me, the most important evaluation film should be the practice film because you're going against, if you're in the one group, you're in the two group, sometimes you're going against some ones, but you're running the entire playbook. And there's so much fear around the league of competitive advantage in these preseason games. Nobody's running anything. And I think you see that now in the joint practices where there used to be, I say the first couple of years we did them, it was great work because you were going against teams that were running their installs and they weren't afraid to like show things. But then with the nepotism around the league and different coaches on different places and the families of staffs, people are so afraid to show anything in practice because now you have that on film. Well, this is what they're working on. This is the new stuff. This is the defense. And now you're playing, you know, Jonathan Gannon tomorrow night, and he's obviously putting in a first year system, but we don't expect them to do any of the stuff that they're going to see in week one, and that's just the way it goes. And we're not opening the playbook either. We got 8 installs plus all the miscellaneous things we put in. We're not going out there and showing the entire playbook, and that's just the way it goes. So, what is the value of it? It's to see how guys react under the lights, when it becomes real, when there's actual tackling. But what's the value of it? I don't think it's super high because in 15 we lost our all-pro wide receiver, and we still went 10-6 that year and won a playoff game. But if you remember at the end of that season, like the last play, we had Jeff Janis, Jared Abbrederis, and James Jones running down there to catch a Hail Mary because Tay was banged up all year and Cobby punctured his lung in the game, and Jordy was out since preseason. So there's not a tremendous amount of value that I see in it, but I'm not sure what the right thing to do is with that. They would probably, the league would say, well, we'll take one away if you just give us an extra regular season game.
Aaron Rodgers comments. I can't help but agree with him right there, Mike.
Yeah, I love preseason football and contact and all those good things, and wish that maybe they had some more real tackling drills, in practice. But to me, that the owners are going to go from 17 to 18 games, and so that's just such a long season on these bodies. Then, what about the playoffs? So in terms of the quality of the sport, player safety, and all those considerations, I just think it's time that they have to get real about this and say, you've got to give these younger players a chance to be evaluated to perform, but you want to protect some of these guys. So make it more of a joint practice, make it more like a family night. Make it more like family night, and then just decide. Listen, maybe they need to extend the roster deadline into the regular season, so guys get more opportunities to play in games and get some snaps in there before they finally have their final decisions, and to keep the level of the quality of the game up, but at the same time, understand what you're dealing with. So even though the Packers lost 28-9 last night, the Packers defense, first and second teams, held the Steelers, and of course Rodgers never touched the field. They were using their backups. Will Howard is going to be their quarterback of the future, no question, not Rudolph. It wasn't until they got to the fourth quarter and the Packers' third and fourth stringers were out there on defense, and then the Steelers then ran it up with 3 touchdowns. So Mike McCarthy gets his first win, which is a preseason game as the new head coach of the Steelers, which is still almost surreal.
Mm-hmm.
But to the guy from, I was taking the airport shuttle, Phil, and the guy was a Steelers fan, and I said, so what did you think about them hiring McCarthy? And he said, he's a Pittsburgh guy, so that's great, but he owes us a Super Bowl.
That's true. Took one away with the Packers. We're just about out of time, but a signature win, I think, for the Brewers last night. That was a great come-from-behind win, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Down 4-2 in L.A. against the Dodgers after being swept by the Padres, a surging team. And the Brewers come back and play Brewer baseball, single after single. One from Ortiz, one from Hamilton, and running guys around. And Brewers end up winning last night 5-4. Tonight it'll be Robert Gasser on the mound against Yamamoto in Game 2 of this 4-game series this weekend in L.A.
Yeah, and they're a little banged up. Bryce Terang dealing with a knee injury too, isn't he?
Yeah. He was scratched from the game last night, and then Pat Murphy revealed he's been dealing with a sore knee to the point where they pretty much have shut him down. MRIs, they'll get some results today. He's day-to-day right now.
Okay. Well, we'll let you go. Tell Aaron Rodgers hi for us, and we'll talk again next week.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
You bet. Mike Clemens joining us here on WRCO Sports.